Welcome to the new members spring training social distancing edition, part 3. This will be the last session that we do this spring, and then we're on to summer conditioning, rules study, and then getting geared up for the fall, Lord willing. Hope you guys are excited. I'm ready to rock. Talk about a few other things today. Our plan is to do a quick recap of the other 2 webinars, and they can be found as links in the forum. And then we're going to move on to talk about relationships, those that we have with fellow officials, coaches, and players. So good to be with you guys again. Most of you guys know me, and we will get rolling with the schedule, which you are here at the 3rd spring training. And then we have the first meeting of the fall beginning June 29th. Those are tentative dates, depending on other chapter business that gets finalized. Once that does get finalized, you'll receive an email from the website, and other channels that you've put your information in, we'll send it out that way. If you're not in yet, I hope you will. We have our application at fortworthfootballofficials.org, fwfo.org/join. You will also join at tasso.org. So there's a couple details there. Make sure you snag the rule book, and we will be here to help you along the way. So relationships with other officials can be complicated, and not just because people are complicated, but because organizations are complicated. So we wanted to tell you a little bit about the groups involved in officiating that you'll be hearing about. So the first is the University Interscholastic League. This is the Texas organization that organizes and supervises extracurricular contests. We also have TAPS, which is the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools. These 2 organizations sponsor the games that we will be working. And so while we are officials, they're the ones that are truly behind the game. TASO, I'm sure you've heard that a lot, Texas Association of Sports Officials. It's an independent organization, but TASO works closely with the UIL and TAPS. And then FWFO, that's us, Fort Worth Football Officials. It's a chapter, you'll hear that thrown around a lot. All of the different mini organizations of officials in Texas, we call them chapters. They're called different things around the country, but here we are a chapter of local officials. So within our chapter, we distinguish differentiating factors on each official's profile. You can find that on the website. And the first way we distinguish is by experience. And so you can find the TASO uses something called division. All officials across the state of Texas use division, and those are tracked by points. And like we've talked about, you can earn those points by working games, attending clinics, some other extracurricular things here and there. And then as you earn points, you move up in divisions. The lowest division is Division 5. The highest division is Division 1. So put that in your brain. You've got some points. You can move up from 5 to 1. Like we've talked about before, these aren't the end-all be-all, just the distinguishing factor. Within our chapter, we have an additional distinguisher, which is place, determined by years of officiating in TASO. And so place 1 is 0 to 5 years. Place 5 is 11 plus years. And then we break down some of the 6 to 10, 11 plus. We break those down into different categories so that we can better serve our constituents. The place is also what determines the representative that will advocate for you on the board, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So as I go, please remember, throw those questions in the Q&A. I can get to them as we go. So that's talking about experience. Now let's talk about where you're going to work. Once you've got your division, you've got a place, what other terms are you going to hear officials refer to? So we've got auxiliary members. Those are members who only work the chains and the clock. And then we also have some auxiliary members who are there only to help with some teaching and evaluation. But for the most part, you'll hear auxiliary refer to chain or clock only officials. Then you have pool members. Once you're a full-fledged member, you're eligible to work on the field as an official. You can work chains and clock as well, but the pool officials are assigned kind of as needed. You aren't connected with any other officials week-to-week basis. You're just assigned to any of those varsity games on an as-needed basis. We'll kind of come back to the pool in a second. We also have crews. Now, crews in football officiating, every time you step on the field, you're part of the officiating crew for that game. But we also refer to crew as a formal group that'll stick together week to week, and they're recognized as a chapter. And we have 5-person crews and 7-person crews. The referee position on the field is not just the symbolic leadership. They've got the white hat. They make the announcements. They also take the main role off the field with the leadership of the crew. And you'll also hear the referee referred to as the crew chief. So the general feel that you'll get when you talk to other officials is that, hey, the goal is to be on a crew. And generally we can see why. You get more guaranteed games. You get to work with the same people each week. Coaches request officials by crews. However, this isn't for everyone. Some of our really excellent second-year officials have not yet joined a crew. They haven't worked a whole lot of varsity games yet in year one, and they get to work in the pool. They get to be assigned to different games with different crews on an as-needed basis, and they get to know all of the different crews. They get to have a better feel for who do I work well with on a consistent basis if I was on a crew week to week. And there's also other officials who aren't on crews at all. They just stay in the pool, and there's nothing bad about this. If you can work football, the assigners know you can work football, and you're going to get games. So there's nothing about being a pool official that should scare anyone about, man, I got to get on a crew or else I'm worth nothing. You are as valuable a member of our chapter as any. And so those are just two different ways that we refer to how our officials work games. So that's the lay of the land when it comes to officials in the chapter. You'll hear people refer to the pool and the crews pretty often. Also within our chapter, we have leadership that serves us in various ways. The whole of our leadership team that you'll hear referred to as the board. We have our officers, which are the president, the vice president, immediate past president, and the chapter secretary. The chapter secretary is the keeper of the dues, the tracker of the points, other super important administrative tasks. They are going to help you with anything that you'll need in those areas. Also serving you are representatives. There's one for each of those 5 places. So you as a new official will be in place 1, and you will be represented by the place 1 representative. They're the eyes and ears of the board. They help advocate for the officials in their place, for their constituents, if you will, to help you get things done on your behalf within the board structure. So that's our chapter leadership. So how does the assignment process work? Well, we have something called the Varsity Assigning Committee, which you'll hear referred to as the VAC. This is the committee that comes together. They decide what crews and individuals get what games. You'll notice that it overlaps. You've got the president, the vice president, and the immediate past president on this committee. But then you also have a unique position called the Varsity Assignment Secretary. You also hear this referred to, since we love our acronyms, as the VAS. The assignment secretary is different than the chapter secretary. They're the primary face to the coach. They talk to the rest of the board about who gets on what games. And so they have a little bit more specialized role in that aspect. And then finally, as far as assignments go, the ones that you guys will refer to, or that you guys will interact with more on a day-to-day basis, are going to be the sub-varsity coordinators, also referred to as sub-varsity assigners. These assigners are all listed on the website, and they're responsible for a different geographic segment of the school served. So what you'll be encouraged to do as you get going, go on the website, find the sub-varsity assigner for your area, reach out to him and let him know, I'm willing to work. We'll go over how to block your schedule so that they can assign you on our assignment software, but this is how your relationship with them will begin. Our sub-varsity coordinators are awesome. They look out for your interest, and they're really good about helping pair you with other officials that will help contribute to your growth. So keep them in the loop as you grow as an official. So those are the different kind of groups of people that we have within our chapter and outside of our chapter. Hopefully that will help you as some of these terms get tossed out to navigate that terminology a little bit better. So I'm biased because I love training, I work with training, but I believe that one of the best aspects of relationships with other officials is learning. And this quote has been attributed to a lot of people, but I love it. When you're through learning, you're through. You will not advance in the chapter or continue to be a solid official if you stop pursuing learning. And like I said before, if you find that one kind of superstar who thinks they don't need to learn anymore, you'll know why they're stuck in their career. The primary way that you'll interact with others in the chapter is being a learner alongside of them. For you guys in the new members class, we encourage you to participate and ask questions. There's really no such thing as getting derailed in our new members meetings. All of our tracks are pointed in the same direction. We got to get everyone on the same page throughout year one so that when you come out of year one, then you're in the same boat as all of the other officials in the chapter. You're speaking the same terms, the knowledge, the vocabulary, and you're tracking right along. So we want you to come and participate, ask all of the crazy questions. That's what we're here for. Outside of class, I've talked about the mentorship aspect of officiating. Text, call, email those mentors and your trusted advisors. They love it. They love answering your questions. I talked last week about part of your growth being intentionally involved, and that's what I'm talking about here. Stay involved, stay connected with those other people. And there's another way that you'll learn, and there can be potentially some exponential growth here. So talk about it for a sec. I call it playing up. So this is when you're going to get into a setting that might be over your head or might be 1 or 2 steps above where you are now. This could be a large chapter group meeting. This could be position breakouts, a regional clinic, scrimmages, charting fouls, sitting in on a pregame. These are opportunities that you might jump at, that you might not feel ready for yet, but we want you there. The best thing you can do in these settings is just attempt to drink from that fire hose, which is what it's going to feel like. Soak up what you can. Have a pen and paper with you, and when something's mentioned that you have no clue about, write it down. I have a notebook from when I started officiating where I did that, and it's funny to go back and see what things that I didn't know at the time that I do know now. If a scenario comes to your mind, you're wondering how it plays out, write it down. And then later, you can check with your mentor, trusted advisor, bring that to the new members class for discussion, or better yet, look it up yourself. This isn't to discourage you from participating in these scenarios, but a lot of times what keeps us from asking questions is not wanting to feel silly or derail the conversation. And some of that's valid. There's only so much time sometimes to cover material. So if you're playing up one week and you realize that the knowledge base that you're in the middle of is way above your level, rather than sitting back and tuning out and letting the confusion kind of push you back, write down the questions and make it your mission to look them up later. And I'll bet it will actually stay with you longer because you're the one who figured out the answer anyway. And as you go, you'll get more comfortable as you settle in, and the better mentors that you'll find will be the ones who can rope you in on these conversations and can help you not feel as far behind. So in not feeling far behind, we can talk about the curve, and this is not a bad joke about social distancing. In fact, once these restrictions get lifted, it is quite the opposite. To increase your learning curve, here are the best strategies. Observing, just being around, those verbs are not congruent there, bugs me. Take opportunities, I screwed that up. Observe, be around, take opportunities. At the risk of beating a dead horse, there's really no substitute for our chapter meetings. You can get a bullet point summary from someone else who was there. You can get a, oh yeah, we talked about something, you can just read yourself. But the comprehension comes more from just being around and listening. As we say PSK, and you realize, oh, that means post-scrimmage kick, or the times we say neutral zone, and then later you'll see in a note NZ, and you put those pieces together that neutral zone and NZ are the same things. The same goes for scrimmages, chain assignments, charting fouls, attending pregames. Those are some of the other opportunities that you can have by just saying yes and jumping at any of those. If you're just around those situations, you'll start to hear what other officials are talking about. You get to hear the discussions they have. You'll start to see what opportunities that others have to learn. The more you see on the field, the more it's going to connect with what we talk about in the classroom. And the more you realize exactly what you've learned in the rules and the mechanics manual. And the more time you spend in the mechanics manual and the rule book, the more you're going to track when you're sitting in class, and the more you're going to just light up when it happens on the field and you see what we just talked about. So all of these things work together, but sometimes just being around is the best way to increase your learning curve. So as you learn and as you grow, you will develop relationships. And this is why many of us stay in officiating. We all have deep friends in officiating. Every week I talk to my friends in officiating. We probably talk 25% football and 75% just life. Granted, it is the off season, but I've developed so many connections beyond what's just on the field. And there can be challenges, as there can be with any relationship. Another unattributed quote that I enjoy: blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make yours shine brighter. So don't be afraid of the competition that you feel. Everybody wants to move up. The officials who don't work varsity want to work varsity. Those who work varsity want more varsity games. Those who work every week want to get on crews. The ones on crews want to get better games than other crews, who want to get into playoffs, who want to get to the championships, who want to get to a higher level of championships. And it just keeps going. It's not a zero-sum game that if one official moves up, someone else is obviously going to move down, or a one-person ladder that you have to step on someone on the way up. You're going to work with a variety of people with a variety of experiences and personalities. And this is going to mean that some nights you work with someone who just doesn't mesh well with your personality. They might try to show you their officiating scoreboard, make sure you know how cool they are. They may be the, let's get this thing over with and go home official, or they may just be having a bad day and they're the let's go home official that one night. You're also going to have some times that you get to meet some really cool people. You get to learn from them, you get to get in the trenches, you get to work a really good game. And I truly think that the officials that you work with and you meet, most of them will be so happy to have the new faces in the chapter. So I hope that you are looking forward to the new friends and crewmates that you meet in this avocation. Well, what's another relationship you think of in football? Obviously, we have the coaches. We often think of those. Just like the stripes don't mean that we're not another human, it's the same thing with a headset. Being a line of a scrimmage official, I work on the sideline, and I love this aspect of the game. I love interacting with coaches. It's a challenge. It's a dynamic factor. If done well, it can really make a difference in your game. So we want to start our relationship with coaches early. Go shake their hand, make eye contact, introduce yourself. You'll learn about having a pregame meeting with coaches and what to say in that pregame, but making a good first impression is really key. You got your uniform looking sharp, you know what to say in your pregame, your equipment's ready to go, you'll have a confident handshake, I'm ready to work. The aspect of interacting with coaches that is not an option is verbal communication. Or it's not optional. It is an option. It's not optional. Some examples of starting off the conversation with coach: hey, coach, we warned 74 to scoot up, so he's still legal. Hey, coach, you've got 2 timeouts left. These are easy ways to just get that conversation started. Asking instead of telling is another key verbal communication tool. Instead of, coach, get off the white, or back up, coach, you say, hey, coach, could you help me out and give me more space here on the sideline? Or if I've already mentioned to him about the sideline, I'll often just say, hey, coach, help me out. And it's a little bit less demanding, and you're working with him rather than against him. The nonverbal communication also goes a long way. When possible, and not during the play, not when the snap is imminent, but make eye contact. This goes a long way with the coaches. They know you're listening. They know you care. Also, you'd be surprised at how not natural this is, but take the whistle out of your mouth. If you just want to sit there and chew on the old Fox 40, and the coach goes, hey, how many timeouts do I have left? And you're like, hey, coach, I had 2 timeouts left. And you get the, are you sure I do look? Because you got a whistle in your mouth and you don't sound confident. That's one of those key things that little things that we can do to increase our communication with coaches. Non-defensive poses are another nonverbal communication tactic, help you diffuse those potentially turbulent situations. Don't cross your arms, don't put your hands on your hips, don't turn away from the coach when he's trying to talk to you unless you have to for the play. These are key things that you'll learn, you get to practice. You don't have to have them down pat day one, but just some things for you to think about. Well, unfortunately with coaches, sometimes there is conflict. You will have conflict with coaches. So what do we think about in these situations? Well, we have to kind of figure out, are we dealing with a question? Does he really want a response, or is it just noise? Or even worse, does this communication that the coach is given cross the line into unsportsmanlike conduct? So some tips to keep in mind with coaches. Know what you called so that you can explain it briefly. He comes running at you after a pass interference call. He genuinely wants a response, and you've got in your back pocket, hey coach, he wasn't playing the ball, he made early contact. Rather than just, yes sir, it was a foul, you've got actually what happened on the play. If they just want to chew, you've got some other things in your pocket. I use these all the time. I hear you, coach. Okay, I got it. Hey, we'll watch for it. Things that aren't, get out of my face, but they're also, I'm listening, I hear you, there's nothing else for me to say in this instance. We try to do our best to defuse these situations so that we don't have to use our final tool of throwing a flag for unsportsmanlike conduct. Sometimes that line is crossed and it must be addressed. We'll talk about that more in the fall. But really, like I said, it's all about relationship management. We want to keep that line of communication open throughout the game with coaches. If you're not talking to the coach throughout the game, you're not doing your job. So players, this isn't a picture of football, but I love this picture. It's an official relating to a player in a personal way. And Lauren Holtkamp does a great job of this in the NBA, and we need to be more like her as we put that into our football game. In high school, we go to the coach for most things. In junior high and high school, unlike professional sports, high school players have less latitude to talk to officials. They can't just come up and ask you about calls. That's really the thing you want to go to coaches for. But this doesn't mean that you can't relate to them. Officials are kind of intimidating sometimes to players. They just seem like a cold third party making arbitrary decisions, and sometimes we are. But preventative officiating goes a long way. So some things that I use often to talk to players. Talk to them before the game, try to meet them. Great night for football, huh? They're going to be excited to get back out there this fall. You are too. Talk about it. You ready to get this thing going? I've been looking forward to it too. Hey, they make a great play. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, nice snag, 28. You're not showing favoritism because you're interacting with the player. Some other preventative things you can say, hey guys, play's over. Easy guys. Hey, keep those hands inside, all right? I don't want to have to call you for a holding. And, maybe you see someone get upset with someone else, pull them to the side. Hey man, let him make the mistake. You can control keeping your own cool. Let us handle him, all right? As we talk about preventative officiating, you'll hear me say this throughout the fall as we go through class. I hate this word. It is gotcha. We do not want to be gotcha officials. This is the official that stands on the sideline. He's got his hands on his knees, and he's just looking. He's really intent. He's going to find something, and then when that something happens, boom, flag goes 50 feet in the air. We gotcha. I get to throw a flag. That is not why we're out there. And so these relationships can kind of help prevent some of those gotcha flags. And this is why we play the game. These players are out there to play. We're out there to facilitate that. And especially at lower levels, we want to educate whenever possible. We're not out there on a Wednesday night for a sub-varsity contest to show how much we know about football. We're going to try to get the linemen up on the line. We're going to try to prevent those holdings away from the play. It's not about us, and that's kind of a freeing thing. It's kind of cool to be able to be involved in something that's bigger than us. So those are the relationship aspects of officials, players, coaches. Talked a little bit about each of them. If you have any questions, throw those in the question and answer box. Love to talk about those. And as always, make sure to follow us, Fort Worth Officials on Twitter, Stripes in Action on Instagram, and Fort Worth Football Officials on Facebook. Next up, we have our off season. Hopefully you guys are out there taking advantage of this awesome weather, getting in shape, keep your fitness up. If you guys have questions, shoot them over to me, mattholmquist13@gmail.com, and we will be in touch.